Here, hopefully, because you are going to be hosting a JV for the 26-27 service term. So we gather folks at the beginning of this process when before we begin our vetting. So you know a little bit about what your role is there, and it's a precursor to our longer training that happens in the spring that all site supervisors join that talk much more about the role of the site supervisor during the year. So we'll touch on some of those roles of a site supervisor today, but the most of our time will focus on your first most immediate task is finding and vetting your JV fit throughout the spring. If you're here, maybe you're totally new to JVC Northwest in terms of hosting a JV, or maybe you're a new site supervisor at a site where you've had a JV before, or maybe you don't have a JV this year, but have had a JV in the past. So want to just acknowledge there's also probably some good wisdom in the room too of folks that have had some JV experience, and maybe you were a JV yourself, and that's what's brought you back. I'm going to get us started just overviewing what we're going to talk about today. So you'll meet Adriana and I, who were two members of the program team that you'll meet throughout the process. You've probably already met the program coordinator for your locale too, who's your main point of contact. As I mentioned, we'll overview the role of a site supervisor. We'll talk about selection and placement, which is that vetting process to find the right fit for your applicant. We'll also talk about how we recruit our applicants to be JVs and where we can use your support in finding the qualified applicants for all of our roles. And then we'll just reiterate some key dates to keep in mind for 2026-27 and have plenty of time for questions at the end. Before we dive too far in, just want to introduce who you'll be talking or who you'll be hearing from today. So my name is Sarah Jones. I also go by SJ. Whatever works for you works for me. And I use she and they pronouns, and I'm the director of the JV program. So I've been at JVC Northwest working professionally for 10 years and was a JV myself in Bethel in Western Alaska after I finished school. And I am joining from Portland, Oregon, which is where I live now. And I'll pass to Adriana, who's the other voice you'll be hearing today, to introduce herself.
Hello, it's good to see everybody. I'm Adriana Perrin Nacarado, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the assistant director of the JV program. I started here about 6 years ago as a program coordinator, and um, my role has shifted over the years. So I spent some time in program coordinator in Alaska and then Seattle and Tacoma, and now I'm supporting our Portland communities this year. And I didn't do JVC Northwest, but I did a similar program called Lutheran Volunteer Corps, and I've been sucked into the full-time volunteer service realm ever since. And I'll pass it back to you, SJ.
Thanks, Adriana. So part of what we do on our team as a high structure is we oversee our grant. We're an AmeriCorps grant recipient, and we also have independent or non-AmeriCorps positions. So navigating the nuances of those different roles. So paperwork and compliance and reports back to our federal grantor. We also offer technical assistance to your JVs and site supervisors as you're navigating our systems, and we coordinate program-wide initiatives, resources, newsletters, handbooks, trainings like this for all of our sites, and our application process, both for you all as partner agencies that you've already been through, and our incoming applicants that are going through their process right now. We also have a lot of direct staff support team called our program coordinators, and that team is the group that will directly support you all as site supervisors. So they're often that first email or phone call to get a clarifying question answered or support for your JV. We divide those roles into regions. So you'll see we have four currently. Adriana's on this list too, as she currently supports our Portland JVs, but you can see that Zana supports what we call our Big Sky communities. So Ashland, Boise, Missoula, Spokane, and St. Xavier, and next year also Pryor, Montana. Annie Benino Britch is the newest member of our team, and she joined us in August and is an FJB herself, served in Portland and Juneau, and she's in Seattle, Tacoma, and Yakima over point of contact. And then Michael Farrell is our Alaska program coordinator, also an FJB in Anchorage and Juneau, and he supports our Alaska communities in Anchorage, Bethel, Juneau, and Sitka. So When you'll see them, you'll have a lot of communication over email. They'll also be the one that's sharing applicants with you. So we'll talk about that in a little bit of how that process works. They'll also visit your locale twice a year, and once a year they'll conduct a site visit. So they'll come and talk about how things are going at the site. And part of our, if you're an AmeriCorps site, part of that grant compliance is a once a year visit. They'll also host a site supervisor meeting that's pretty similar to this one, twice a year. So actually, right before this meeting, Michael was hosting an Alaska site supervisor meeting on the same Zoom. So pretty common. Sometimes they're in person, sometimes they're virtual. And they're often that great person to answer a quick question throughout the time that you're connected with them. I'm going to pass to Adriana, who's going to describe a little bit more about the role of a site supervisor.
Yes, so you all may be wondering, I'm going to be a site supervisor. Now what? And before I dive into these pieces here, I just want to give a shout out to you all for being the point person for our program, but also for supporting this young professional coming into your organization in the next few months. We're excited to have that partnership and also know that your role is really vital in promoting a successful JV experience at your service site. And so, how we can support you as a site supervisor is through a number of different things that I'll highlight here. First is training and resources. At the start of our program year, or rather before the start of our program year in May, we host a site supervisor training every year. And we have a couple of options here. You can already put on your calendar. The May 20th and May 26th are one of two options that will ask you to attend that will give an even fuller overview of the program year and especially talk more about our AmeriCorps grant and our program requirements. But it's a really helpful time to get to know the JVC Northwest program more and also ask questions too. And around that same time, we will provide a handbook for partner agencies and a link to our partner agency resource page, both of which are helpful resources to access throughout the program year. They provide information about our calendar and about different expectations of partnership. Really, especially the handbook is very full of resources on that front and often a helpful addition to the training that happens in May. And then a full-time resource that I hope and I am certain you'll get to know over the program year is the program team, particularly your program coordinator that you'll be working closely with. As Sarah mentioned, your PC, your program coordinator, is really your point person for any questions you have or concerns, or if you want to celebrate successes during your JV year, they're the best person to contact on that front. And some ways that that's already built into our program is through what's called area visits. So your program coordinator will connect with you in the fall and winter during the program year to conduct a site visit that happens once a year. And is a great time to check in a little bit more deeply about your experience hosting your JV and a way to ask for support or get clarity about our program, especially if it's your first year hosting a JV. So looking on the other half of this slide, I want to talk a little bit about some practical pieces. These are accounts that you as a site supervisor may already have, but will have related to your partnership with JVC Northwest. So if you were involved in the application to host a JV at your organization this year, you already have a NAC account, and that is where our application for partner agencies lives. But another account you'll obtain is through our program called America Learns. And this is where you'll sign over the summer before the program year starts the contracts to host a JV. During the program year, it'll also be where you and your JV will look at their timesheets. So every month, JVs submit their timesheets by the 5th of the month. And then as a site supervisor, you'll go in and you can approve those timesheets by the 10th of every month. And an overview of how to use America Learns and what we use it for will be included in our site supervisor training in May. So this is more of a foreshadowing that more information will come a little bit down the road, but that's what you can anticipate. And continuing on here too, another digital resource that we want to make sure you have is our constant contact communications. So we've noticed that the at jvcnorthwest.org can sometimes end up in people's junk folder or spam folders. And we send a lot of updates and information through our emails in constant contact. So a plug to make sure that JVC Northwest is a safe sender on your end of things. Through constant contact, we send newsletters each month. It's also how we communicate information about the evaluations that are needed, documents, and other notifications. So if it's not already on your safe sender list, please go ahead and mark that so we can make sure we're communicating with you effectively during the program year. And as the program year starts in August, along with it will include some evaluations throughout the year. So there's an evaluation suite for our JV AmeriCorps members. It's a three-parter. Their first is what's called our initial placement assessment, which takes place in the fall. It can feel almost like a 90-day review, but it's essentially a chance to check in a little more deeply about how the start of the year is going, what supports the JV may need, what feedback you want to provide to the JV about the beginning of their service year so far. And then around this time of year, so January, February is when we do our midterm evaluation. So kind of a midpoint check-in. And then we have our end of term evaluation towards the summer for the end of the program year. For our JVs who are also in capacity building roles, they will engage in some other evaluations and proposals for their project. The first being a proposal that is submitted and approved by JVC Northwest. The capacity building project is a great opportunity for a JV to assess where their skills can meet a need or a gap in your organization. And really, as a site supervisor, is a great opportunity to collaborate with them on ways that they could work on a project that expands capacity in your organization. So that's something that'll happen in the fall, the late fall. And we'll ask for your participation in that again in the spring and summertime when it's the final review and confirmation of the role too. So some things to have on your radar in that realm. And then this last piece here, the JVC Northwest pre and post organizational evaluation, is something that you as a site supervisor will be involved in, but not your JV directly. The things I mentioned before are things that your JV and you will collaborate on. But this last one here is something that we'll ask you to fill out before your JV even gets started on planning a possible capacity building project, to essentially evaluate where are their needs, where are their gaps, how can a capacity building project help build out our programming or our organizational need. And then once it's all said and done, end of the program year, we'll ask about what the impact was. Was it useful to have a capacity building project? And those evaluations will come from our external AmeriCorps evaluators too. So you'll hear from people, not just us, but some external folks as well. But all that to be said, more information about that will come in our May training too. The last thing I'll mention on site supervisor responsibilities are some notes I want to share about best practices, like patterns we've noticed that really aid JV success at service. And the first note here is that, or want to highlight the importance of the site supervisor webinar. That webinar really does give a holistic view of our program and is a chance for site supervisors to understand our AmeriCorps grant compliance, but also really get to know that JVs aren't just doing full-time service, but also doing full-time community and living in often new locales as they're understanding the context in which they're serving, engaging in retreats and other elements of our program. So they have a full year ahead of them in addition to their full-time service with you all. And honoring the boundaries with service and especially time at service can really help support them in engaging the other parts of our program. Secondly, a comprehensive training and onboarding. has led to such good success for JVs. We noticed that JVs who feel like they have had the training they need to really dive into their role can do so with confidence and with support. And so knowing that they're going to be in a new role, often, our JVs are young professionals and may have desire for a bit more training or talking about gaps they may have with you all. Addressing that early on can really lead to a mutually supportive service year and a successful service year. So something we ask that site supervisors plan for and build out prior to their JV arriving. A program requirement that we have is weekly one-on-ones between you as the site supervisor and the JV. And this is a chance to check in more intentionally each week about tasks, but also more broadly, a space to provide feedback and for the JV to also seek support from you. So that's something we'll ask you to build out with your volunteer once the year gets started. And along the lines of supervision, too, we would ask that you communicate any position description changes that go into effect, or rather before they go into effect for your JV. So if there's something that you're noticing where you're like, this isn't quite, the reality of the role isn't quite lining up with the position description, that's a good chance to talk with your program coordinator about doing an update. But also if you want to propose a change and your JV is on board with that too, we ask that you clue us in so that we can make those changes ahead of time and make sure they're in alignment with our program. And similarly, with on the communication front, we'll ask that you let us know of any personnel changes that might affect the JV. So if there's a site supervisor change, let us know so that we can make sure that new person is caught up on trainings and has the accounts and information they need. And lastly, we see that enriching professional development opportunities throughout the program year at a service site can really benefit a JV in their growth, but also their ability to show up well at a service site and in their role as they gain maybe new responsibilities over the year or are able to engage more deeply. So we don't necessarily want the training just to stick to those first few weeks of their service year with you all, but hopefully something that can be integrated throughout the program year as well. And I'll pass it back to you, SJ, to talk about how we even get to the point of having a JV at your service site.
Thanks, Adriana. Well, first, let's talk about where we are right now. So you applied. Thanks for your thoughtful and comprehensive application. You should have received a status letter in late December, early January. You might also still be working on finalizing your position description with your program coordinator. So if you received a PDF of that position description, that means you're good to go. You would also probably know if you're still working on those position description changes. So that's what we're planning to promote to applicants once we start our matching process and what applicants can see online right now. So people are already very curious about many of your positions. So right now we're talking with applicants about their interests, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we start matching those up in a couple weeks. We'll also work to finalize the placement fees. So in your letter, you got a kind of proposed range for a fee. Once we find out about our clarity from AmeriCorps funding, we'll be able to fully set those fees for the year. And that comes later in your placement agreement. Those are usually released in the spring and signed by early July. So something to keep in mind. If you have questions about the fee range or maybe circumstances have changed for you all, please be in touch with us directly and we can talk about payment plans or other options available to you. And we're still looking for some positions in certain locales. So if you are in Yakima or Portland or Seattle and you know of a great partner that we might not know about, but you really trust them as an organization, you think a JV might be a great fit for them, please let us know because we'd love to be able to get in contact with them and see if it's a good option to host a JV. We try to have a large variety of types of positions available for applicants to meet a bunch of applicant interests and needs. So no organization is a bad send to us for a recommendation, and really a warm handoff from a trusted partner like you could really make a big difference. So if something sparked for you from that, please keep us in mind. And some of you may have gotten here through a warm handoff like that from a partner agency. So grateful that you're here. So let's talk nuts and bolts about our selection and placement process. It is starting right now, and it takes up about half of our year. We think about next year's JVs right now, even as our current JVs are getting through that first 6 months of their role. So, what you can expect in the process that we do internally, we offer what's called one-to-one matching, meaning while you are interviewing an applicant for your position, you are the only organization they are interviewing with and considering for their placement with JVC Northwest. Typically, many of our applicants are exploring other options. We have a sibling organization called Jesuit Volunteer Corps that is in many major cities outside of the Northwest domestically. So sometimes people are balancing those two options, but we do one-to-one matching, meaning if you're matched with that role, that's the one applicant you're considering, and they're not considering any other positions with JVC Northwest at that point. All of the applicants that you'll um, interview have been vetted and conditionally accepted into JVC Northwest. So we've done a 60-minute interview with them, and that's based off a rubric of who we know to be successful in our program. They've been conditionally accepted into our program, contingent upon a fit check with an agency, so finding them a good position, and also a criminal history check process that AmeriCorps requires. So hopefully you can feel confident that we feel like they're a good match for you once you get them, but we'll talk a little bit about maybe when that doesn't happen later on in the process. Applicants have also received your full position description. So that 3 to 4 page document that I mentioned that you got in December or January, that's what we share with applicants once they've been matched with your position. And we encourage them to review it and bring questions to your interview about the role and be able to talk about their skills and abilities and how it matches up to responsibilities. So it's nothing you need to send them. They've already received it from our team. And as Adriana mentioned, many of our applicants are new professionals or finishing up school. So you can expect some nervousness in interviews. You can expect maybe just some finding their place in maybe what their gaps might be and soft skills, hard skills, what their experience has been. We know the pandemic also really has shifted people's abilities to have in-person internships and even what internship or job responsibilities have looked like in the past. So making sure that you're kind of just prepared for what that person might come into in the process. And we'll talk about some best practices of how to interview applicants in this process too. As Adriana mentioned, communication is really important for us. So some things that are really important at this time of year in particular around communication that you might not think of initially, we want to make sure we cover here. So first things first, if you'll be offline or away from work for a significant period of time, so a vacation or a planned leave, even if it's not planned, we'd like to know because we can make some decisions with you about what to do about your position. So if you feel like you're the one person at your organization that can really vet that applicant and you're going to be out of the office for 2 weeks, then we can pause your position. So we won't match any applicants with your role while you're out. So then you have the chance to really be present in that space. Sometimes you have another person at your organization that you trust and can do that vetting. So we can also keep it open for you. We would just need to know who that person is. So who's going to be monitoring inbox that we can hear from. So those are your two options there. We also would want to know if you're unable to conduct your interview in the time allotted. So when you get an applicant, you'll get a deadline of when you'll need to interview them by, and your organizations are busy, and sometimes that's just not going to be possible. And each applicant's also working with many other deadlines too. So it's on a case-by-case basis, we can evaluate what's needed to make sure that you all have the time to have the conversation that you'd like to have, and also make sure we're accounting for any other things going on in your world or the applicant's world. We can offer limited extensions. It's pretty rare, but your program coordinator will work with you on that. And we also want to hear from you specifically if you're planning on declining an applicant. We try really hard to get a really great match. And sometimes we swing and miss, and that is okay. So, what we most want to hear from is if you have an applicant that you don't feel confident in, not feeling like you need to make that offer to them, but we would like to know what was it about the interview that didn't feel like a fit. Sometimes for new agencies, they by going through the process, realize, oh, actually, abstractly, when we were completing the application, we didn't think this skill was going to be as important as now that we're doing the interview, we've noticed it is to be. So that can sometimes necessitate position description changes, which are really easy to do. And sometimes it's just not a fit. That is perfectly reasonable too. We just want to be able to, one, give that applicant kind and compassionate feedback about how they performed in the interview. And also, if there's something that's really coming up for you all as an important part of the role that we can screen for when we're matching, we want to have that information too, so we can be the best partner for you all. Let's talk about that timeline for a second. So as I mentioned, we're currently talking to our applicants right now about what they're interested in a service position. So they complete a service interest form for our team that asks them environments they like to be a part of, types of service they're interested in engaging in. Do they like fast-paced work? Do they like slow and predictable paced work? Do they like a mix of those things? And they list 5 positions that caught their eye. Many of your roles, even just looking around this Zoom room, are on those top 5 lists. So we feel really confident that when we accept a position that we can find a match for it. So a member of our team meets with one of each applicant to talk about that. So what do you think? What's coming up for you as themes, or what should we keep in mind? What about locale size? Do you want to be in a really urban place or a really rural place, or somewhere in the middle? We have fits for all of those. So that's what we're working on right now, and that will continue through June. In a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from tomorrow, we'll have our first match session. And that is where all of those people that have been on our team that have been meeting with applicants will come together, and we'll start doing the really fun work of pairing applicants up with roles. So we each kind of come and advocate for our applicants, say these are the great fits, and we're looking for that absolute best fit for you. So you probably have many applicants that are interested and qualified for your role, and we'll work that through that nuance of, actually, I think this person is the best fit out of very qualified applicants for your position. So we begin that on February 5th, which is a Thursday. And then we do that same thing every Thursday through June 11th. So you might be one of those first matches, and you might be one of those last matches. So sometime throughout that spring, you'll hear from us. We have around 123, 25 positions accepted right now, and we will probably match close to 100 people at that first matching. Our recruitment has been really, really strong this fall and spring and winter, which feels really great. So there's a high likelihood that you could get a match in that very beginning part of the process. And we hope that they're all yeses. So what happens? How do you know that you have a match? So we let applicants know after we've matched them, the match that we have to offer. We'll send them that position description, that 3-page document to review and sit with over the weekend. They'll choose whether or not they want to move forward with an interview, and they'll let us know by the end of that weekend, which means that you'll typically have an email in your inbox sometime on Monday from your program coordinator if you have a match to consider. You'll receive the applicant's resume and 2 of their references that they submit as part of their application. A supervisor reference and what we call a mission or mentor reference. So 2 people who have known the applicant in a professional capacity and can speak to their skills and abilities. You'll also just receive some information from our team of why we thought it was a good fit, so you understand a little bit of the context of that match. That's also the email where you'll receive the deadline of when to interview the applicant by. So you'll have 1 week to conduct the interview for your matched applicant. The exact deadline will be in that email. So you can, safe to say, by that next Monday, which is typically the deadline. We just ask, even if you're not going to interview until later in the week, if you can just email them to schedule that the first couple of days. They're anxious to hear from you. So even if you know it's going to take you a little bit of time to coordinate when that actual availability is, just letting them know you've received their information and you're excited to talk to them really eases their nerves a little bit too. They're really excited for this opportunity, and every step along the way is it 1 step closer to finalizing that for them. Once you've had that interview, you'll have that choice, you'll have that chance to decide, do we think this person is a good fit? Could we see them in this role for us? If it's a yes, we're excited. We're ready to receive them. So you'll notify your program coordinator who emailed you the materials your decision. Yep, we'd love to accept this person, or no, we don't think they're a good fit. Provide a little bit of details as to why, just making sure that we can gather the right information. So you won't offer the role directly to the applicant, and the applicant won't respond directly to you either. They'll respond to their matcher. We just use that process as a way to just help people feel like if they're thinking about it and really kind of need that sounding board person to think about, is this the right fit for us, applicant side and agency side? You each have an advocate to talk to throughout the process. So you'll write back to your program coordinator, and then they'll write back to you with the answer from the JV applicant. Either one of those could happen before the other. So sometimes we have applicants that hang up the phone and immediately email and say, I love them. I hope they say yes to me. I can't wait to, like, I would immediately accept the role. And sometimes we have the same from agencies, and sometimes everybody needs a little bit of time to think about it, and that's perfectly fine. So we'll let you know as soon as we have information on our end, and we ask that you let us know as soon as you have information on your end. So once we have that mutual yes from the applicant, yes from you all as the agency, then you're done. You're done for the process for the year, which feels really great. Um, you can begin planning for that onboarding, preparing for that person to arrive, and we're ready to go. Once again, that can happen in February or June or anywhere in between. If it's a no on either side, a no on your side or a no on the applicant's side, your position immediately becomes available for that next week's matching. The only reason it wouldn't become available is if you want to pause it. You want to say, actually, I think we want to regroup and just see what our choices are, or take a minute to talk. That's perfectly fine too. Most of the time, there's nothing wrong with the role. Someone's discerned something else. So most people that don't accept positions either go through our rematch process to find a different fit for them. Maybe something in the interview came up of like, actually, I feel like maybe I would like more of this type of role than that type of role. We call that a rematch. You may also interview a candidate that's interviewed with a different agency, or people have picked another option, maybe with a Fulbright or a grad school or another service program. So a no doesn't mean anything around your specific agency. It's just that match. So we'll either confirm that person and you're ready to go, or we'll seek a new applicant for you as soon as we can. Just like some best practices about being a site supervisor, we have some best practices that we've kind of learned over time about hosting that interview. So we encourage agencies to use the tools that work best for your organization for the interview. Maybe you're in the habit of using phone calls for that interview. Maybe you're in the habit of using a video call. Maybe it's over the internet without video but audio. Whatever works best for you, whatever you're most comfortable with technology-wise, feel free to use. We also just recommend you inform the applicant of who will be present during the interview. We let them know that for sure the site supervisor will be there, but if they are expecting only one person and then four people show up on a little Zoom room, that can be pretty intimidating. So just letting them know who they'll be talking to, and if possible, a little bit about why. There's oftentimes you'd want to involve a key collaborator that this JV might be serving alongside, and it's really important to have their voice in that vetting process. So as long as you let people know who, that would be great. And then additionally, let the applicant know the specifics of the interview. So the platform it's going to be on. Our applicants are across time zones. So we always are really specific of, I'm giving you a time in Pacific time. So then you know when to show up or when you're prepared for that conversation. We also have heard from agencies, especially new agencies. Well, how do other people do it? Like, do they do phone interviews? Do they do video interviews? What are the best practices that you all have? So we're actually gathering information from our sites right now, including we'd love to know from you all what you're planning. So Adriana's going to drop a link in the chat for a really short survey. If you can complete that and let us know what you're planning on, and we'll plan to share the results out for everybody. There's also one additional very important question on there about a policy change at JVC Northwest that went into effect after our application process for agencies. So we have removed our COVID vaccination policy of requiring all JVs to be vaccinated during the year to one that focuses more on testing and highly recommending vaccination. And we want to know how that might affect an applicant that we want to match for you all. We gather information from our applicants of what is their vaccination status. And if you require that and want someone fully vaccinated the whole year, we just want to make sure that we can match you up with an applicant that is going to meet that need. Overwhelmingly, JVs have said they've been vaccinated and will continue their vaccination, but we just want to make sure that we avoid a complicated situation later on where um, we're more dealing with the actual realities of a mismatch there. So if you can do that sometime today, that would be great. I'll also put that in the email that goes out with the recording if you're into monotasking right now and really want to stay present in this space. Feel free. I'm going to pass to Adriana to talk a little bit about our recruitment process and how we would love you all to help support us.
Thank you, SJ. Yes, so as Sarah mentioned before, we have had a really successful recruitment season so far, and we are always looking to increase our efforts, though, in recruitment of JVs within the locales in which they serve in, so specifically in the Northwest region. We see a lot of JV applicants come from the Midwest and East Coast, but also even more so over the years, more Pacific Northwest or West Coast. And that has really been due to the help of our partner agencies too, sharing about their partnership with JVC Northwest and sharing more about their JV role. So we have a few asks of you all to help in our JV recruitment as the season is really kicking off. And first up is to share your JV position description on your agency's website and LinkedIn page and any other platforms that you use. This is a great way to share more locally of folks who may be interested in your organization or maybe have volunteered with you all in the past and see this position and get excited about it and, consider applying to JVC Northwest. And we've had some really cool success stories of JVs learning about us through our partner agencies. And so it's worked in the past and we want to keep promoting that. So that's an ask we have for you all in advertising both your awesome JV roles and also the JVC Northwest program at large. We'd also ask that you share stories of your relationship to JVs and JVC Northwest, announcing your partnership with us, that you're going to be hosting a JV for the 26-27 program year. Could be a great way for potential applicants to see that that's an opportunity they could pursue with your organization and our program. And when you do have a JV, we also ask that you continue to encourage your JV to support recruitment efforts throughout the program year. Our application for JV applicants opens in the first deadline's in December. So, it's really quite quick shortly after the JV year begins. And often word of mouth from a current JV to a potential incoming JV has really been a great way to recruit more applicants as well. So that's a little more forward thinking, but all that to be said, your role as a partner agency has been continued success in getting more local JV applicants in our program. And I also want to share a resource too that Sarah Jones will drop in the chat in a moment. It's our JV program partner agency recruitment resource page. And this has a lot of different cool resources from templates that you can use to post on social media or newsletter templates, language about how you can add posting a JV to your website. It's really meant to be an easy access kind of plug and play type of resource that you can use to then help promote the JVC Northwest program and hopefully then help promote some really strong JV applicants coming into our program to fill these roles too. So thank you for your support in our program in that way as well. And I'll pass it back to Sarah to close us out with some key dates.
Thanks, Adriana. So just wanting to put some dates on your radar. These all are also in that calendar that you received with your status letter. So these are repeats, but just helps to kind of see them visually now. The next and most important date is our first matching session coming up in a couple of weeks. So keeping that on your radar is the soonest possible that you could hear from us about an applicant to vet. So that first interview window, if you were matched in that first session, would be February 9th through the 16th. And the 16th is President's Day. So just want to flag for folks if your organization is closed that day, making a plan to have that interview done before that holiday weekend. Our final match of the season is June 11th. So we match weekly, and that's the last match of the season. And the last window for that is then to interview is June 15th through 22nd. So you'll be somewhere in between there. It's hard to predict and know, but if you're ever getting nervous, your PC is a great person to talk about. Oh, where are we? It's kind of getting to be the end of March, and we haven't heard from anybody, like anything we could do differently or things like that. So please let us know. Silence doesn't mean nothing. Silence can mean conversation, depending on what you need. As Adriana mentioned, we have an annual site supervisor training that goes much more into the details of the site supervisor role. You can pick one of these dates to attend. I'll also put the registration links in the email that I'll send this recording into, so you can pick which one you want to attend. May is far off and also will be here before we know it. So getting that on your calendar so by the time you even turn to May, oh, I already registered for that Zoom. Way to go. I'm ahead of the game. As I mentioned, you also get your placement agreement packet once you have that confirmed JV in the spring and summer, and then that's due back with a signature. That's all done through America Learns, one of the portals that you'll have an account for by July 1st. And then we have orientation, 2026 orientation. That this year is August 4th through 9th. That's outside of Portland, Oregon. And then the JVs then go from that orientation site to their locale, settle in, pick out their bedroom, open their bank account, go grocery shopping, call their moms, let them know they made it, all that kind of stuff. And then they'll show up for service the first day with you all on August 13th. That is a Thursday. So be thinking about what that day will look like for them as the first start of that onboarding. We ask that you don't ask them to do anything else onboarding related prior to that, because they're doing whatever they're doing before that arrival at orientation. Then they're up on the mountain with us with no service for a week at orientation and then getting settled into their locale. It's perfectly fine if you have your own background check or anything like that that you want them to do, but we ask them not to do any training or come any earlier to their site. I'm really giving them that space to keep fully arriving before that first day of service. That's all the prepared information that we have for you. As we mentioned, we'll share out the recording of this session for you. Feel free to watch it again or send it to anyone else at your organization that may benefit from the information that we shared. And I'm going to stop sharing, and we have plenty of time for questions. If there's specific questions you have or general ones, Adriana can hang, and I will hang out for a while. And then if you have a really specific question to you, feel free to linger. We can manage that as we go along, and we'll keep the Zoom room open for the next little bit of time for questions. So let me stop sharing so we can see faces. And Adriana, if you can stop